Well, we come now to a section of the DVD which I personally find myself very interesting. And it's a 3-tip segment, if you like, about how to play against different classes of opponent. In this first segment, we're going to be looking at how to play against weaker opponents than yourself. In the next segment, we'll be dealing with how to play against players who are roughly the same level as you. And in the final section, we're going to be looking at how to play against stronger or much stronger opponents than yourself. I think your game plan must be subtly different in each case. Of course, you're still playing your style in your own way, but you change your method of play according to the type of opposition you play. You can't play chess in the same way against everybody, because people will just get used to your style and they'll adapt. And, you know, you must be adaptable in chess if you want to achieve maximum results. So first of all, what to do against weaker opposition? Well, here, I think it's fairly simple. You've got to play the game in your usual style and really avoid risk. You've got to let your technique win the game for you. This is the safest and simplest way to take advantage of your overall stronger chess play. The very worst thing you can do against weaker players is to try and smash them off the board and show how clever you are. By over-pressing against weaker players, you run the risk of losing. And, well, then you look exceptionally foolish. I'm not saying you should sit back and wait for the mistakes. That's not what I mean at all. You should try to seek the initiative. But, in general, avoid murky and messy complications. This is basically the tip. Now, one man who has really made a career out of beating weaker players, this is not meant as an insult really, but who is a fantastic technician, who has almost 100% against weaker players, is the East German Grandmaster Wolfgang Ullmann. Mind you, all Grandmasters are merciless against weaker opposition. They know exactly how to play against them. And Ullmann really is absolutely lethal against players who are weaker or even slightly weaker than him, and has been throughout his chess career. Of course, Ullmann these days is a veteran. He still loves chess, he still plays a lot of chess, despite the fact that he's nearly 80 years old, or however old he is. His rating has dropped to 2415, but nevertheless he retains his tremendous technique. Let's not forget that Ullmann in the 1950s and 60s, one of the best players in the world. And you keep that strength as you get older. What you lose, of course, is your tactical ability and your desire to complicate, really. But Ullmann has retained his technique, and we're going to pick up on a very recent game of his. Remember, this is an old man we're talking about. A game from the German Seniors Championship in August 2009. Now, it doesn't sound too exciting, this game, on the face of it, but it's an object lesson, really, in how to play against weaker opposition. So, Ullmann's white, and he's playing a guy called Yuris Vassilievs. And the opening, on the face of it, is nothing special. It's just an English opening. Ullmann's played this opening all his life. He manages to turn the English into a dynamic weapon. I've seen him play fantastic games with the English. I had a fantastic game with him myself in the English. Well, it must be 20 years ago now, which lasted about 80 moves. And he's a real fighter. In this game, Vassilievs plays a system which I don't like very much. This move with G6. And Ullmann, of course, still keeps abreast of the theory, shows exactly why this line of play with black is slightly inferior. The knight on c6 is a target for white's advancing pawns. So, despite the fact that black plays this opening the best way he can now that he's put his knight on c6, he still gets a slight disadvantage out of the opening. And of course, this is exactly what you want when you're the better player. Some nagging edge where the guy's got no counterplay, and you can gradually use this edge, work with this edge, into the middle game. Problem for black was that bishop on e5, isn't it? You know, the bishop on e5 looks out of place. At some stage in the very near future, the bishop's going to have to retreat in order for black's position to make any sense at all. And when it retreats, well, Vassilievs moved it straight away. Black loses time. So after only 10 moves, Ullmann has worked up an appreciable edge in this position. And the problem for black is he has no counterplay. Now, white's plan in this position, let's see if we can detail what white should be thinking about doing. Well, one plan, as I say, is perhaps to move the queen up to d2 and then the bishop out to h6. This would be a very good way of weakening black's king position. To follow that up, maybe white could move his rook to e1 and then put pressure all the way on the e file up to the e7 pawn. That's black's Achilles heel in this position, I would say. The e7 pawn nailed down by the pawn on d5. What can black play to frustrate this plan? Well, basically nothing. And with queen d2, white's setting up the first idea of bishop h6, which black does not like, and plays h5, setting up his own idea of knight g4. But white easily stops that, and now introduces another idea into the position, the idea of c5, which black seems not to like, and plays b6. Now, from where I'm sitting, this move b6 looks poor. I don't like it. I think black just simply has to bite the bullet here and castle. In fact, black never gets castled in this game, which is the source of a lot of his problems, and just take the medicine. You know, black's got to accept he's worse in this position, and he's got to take it on the nose. Somehow he might find a way to defend that e-pawn. Maybe he can get some counterplay going on the queen side, who knows. But to play b6 is really asking for it against somebody like Ullmann, because it creates another target for white. White plays bishop d3, a twofold move. It stops black from playing bishop f5, or dissuades him from doing so, and it also sets up white's idea of rook e1, which, as I said before, sets up pressure against e7. So two things with one move. Black goes queen c8. Well, again, you know, black is trying to combine ideas. He's got bishop f5 on his mind. He may have bishop takes h3 on his mind, which is a crafty little sacrifice. But Ullmann does not fear ghosts, and so goes forward on the queen side with a4. Now, this is a tempting move. It just goes to show that grandmasters do not fear ghosts. You know, he can obviously see, Ullmann, that black is going to go, or thinking about bishop takes h3. Bishop takes h3 in this position I don't think works. Let's see why. To a lesser player, this sacrifice might look frightening, but I think rook fe1 refutes it. Knight g4 can be answered by bishop f4, and queen g4 check can be answered by king f1, and then the simple bishop e2, after which black runs out of steam. So with bishop takes h3 and the sacrifice not working, Vasiliev's plays the simple bishop takes f5. But now note Ullmann's approach. He's very happy to let black exchange pieces. He lets black exchange off his active pieces, presses forward on the queen side. Now a target appears in the black camp, which really is very difficult to defend. Black again offers an exchange. Ullmann's very happy to do that. Yes, black is counter-attacking c4 in this position, but that's easily defended. And now black has a serious problem with two of his pawns. 1, 2. What is left on the board is what is important. Black is left with a passive position. He can do nothing. Ullmann is creating all the threats. Black's king is still stuck high and dry in the middle. Bishop g5, setting up decisive ideas now against e7. This really is an absolutely horrible position for black. Bishop e5, and now tactics, when tactics are good for white. Tactics at Ullmann's disposal. Bishop takes e7. Black must take. f4. The black king remains high and dry in the middle to the end. F takes e5. D takes e5. Queen b4 check. King d8. Well, of course, that is a really horrible move, but king f6 lost outright to rook f1. I mean, I think that's a fairly simple win. So king d8 and now queen b7, emphasising the lack of coordination in black's position. The black king interferes with the coordination of the rooks. White's threatening all sorts of things. Rook takes a6 among them. So there we are. That's an object lesson in how to beat weaker players, really. Never given them a chance in the game. All of black's tactics were sort of snuffed out. White played very logically throughout. White didn't overpress. He kept it simple, really. He got his slight edge out of the opening and he worked with that edge. Very efficient performance by Wolfgang Ullmann. So to sum up, against weaker opponents, let your technique work for you. Avoid risks. Don't avoid complications altogether, but complications should be invited at your convenience. not that of the opponent.